it's my understanding that Number 10 did see that comment piece and they did offer some edits on it before it was published. So it's very clear that Number 10 are aware of what Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, was going to write. And so therefore we can only assume that they are in agreement, or that they are fairly happy for the Home Secretary to be saying the types of things that she has written in that piece. And I think, it's important to say here that there are elements of what she's written that she has said before, that other people have raised as concerns about, the way that marches are policed. We've talked in the past about the Met's ability to police things properly and whether or not they do go too far. But I think some of the comments, particularly about Northern Ireland, for example, are causing some real concern. Stephen Farry, who's the deputy leader of the Alliance Party, has said this morning that her remarks are recklessly stoking divisions in the UK. Others are deeply concerned about that language, some of those within the Conservative Party. And this comes off the back of similar comments, of course, about homelessness and people sleeping in tents as a lifestyle choice, which also caused some frustration.
You obviously know people who know both Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman. What is the dynamic between the two of them? Because the perception is that, I don't know, that she has the ear of the right of the party. She writes in the Telegraph a bit. She's on GB News quite a lot. She talks to a particular constituency of the Tory Party. Does Rishi Sunak see that as a useful thing, a distraction? How can you explain it all?
I think to some extent, Suella Braverman in the past has been allowed to say things that the Prime Minister has maybe held himself back from in a bid to reassure a certain wing of the party and a certain group of voters that the Conservatives are still speaking for them. It goes to an electoral strategy that we believe the party will pursue, which is that they think that there are a group of voters who backed the Tories in 2019 who haven't decided what to do yet, and that they can be switched over to back the Prime Minister, and therefore he still can win the next general election. I think, though, the longer this goes on, the more it divides the Conservative Party, and the bigger the question becomes, to what end are you doing this? Because at the moment, we are focusing almost entirely on divisions within the Conservative Party. If you were thinking about trying to win an election, you might be trying to point out divisions within the opposition, and they do exist. But at the moment, that is not top of the agenda. And you now have, very senior Labour politicians, including Sir Keir Starmer in the House of Commons, telling the Prime Minister, warning him, if you don't get a grip on what Suella Braverman is saying, you are undermining the credibility of your own government. And this is not just any senior cabinet minister. This is the cabinet minister in charge of policing and the independence of policing. Those are very important principles. And there are some MPs and senior ministers within the Tory party who are worried that this is actually undermining the party's credibility in the minds of voters, that it won't help them win. And beyond that, it's actually doing some quite serious damage to government.
Rishi Sunak is fighting a battle on two fronts. He's got obviously the Suella Braverman situation, and then Boris Johnson keeps coming back for more. He says that Rishi Sunak is a stooge for people like Dominic Cummings. I mean, that's I don't know. That's not as serious, I wouldn't think, as a Suella Braverman position, because that is a current thing. She's a current Home Secretary, etc. We know what Boris Johnson thinks of Rishi Sunak. At least we think we do. But what's your reading of his latest intervention?
I think it's not unexpected that Boris Johnson would have some quite strong views on Rishi Sunak, and clearly, using Nadine Dorries' new book as a vehicle to get those across to the public is an interesting choice. I think there will be lots of people who look at those comments and see them as sort of a bit of a distraction. They may not take them seriously. But I think it goes into a big pot, doesn't it? We're talking about the Home Secretary's comments. We're talking about Boris Johnson, criticising the current Prime Minister, which is not something usually that former Tory Prime Ministers would do or of any, similar colour. And at the same time, we've got the COVID inquiry suggesting that the Health Secretary at the time, people were trying to get rid of him because they're worried that he was actually actively causing people, harm. None of those things are good. And Conservative Party pollsters behind the scenes and experts have told them and warned the party they need to maintain this sort of feeling that they are stable, they're credible, that they are going to give people, that stability. And if they can't maintain that within their own party, I think there's quite a big question about whether they can do that for the country in some people's minds.
Yeah.